Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me at the Amplify Festival. It is my first trip to Australia. I'm enjoying immensely your beautiful winter weather. I got to tell you, this is not what winter is like in New York, so for all of you who think this is awful weather, I'm here to tell you, no, it's not. And I'm here today to speak a little bit about innovation and information insights, and how do you do that, and how should all of us, as individuals, as organizations, and as enterprises, think about how do you balance privacy and the respect for the individual and come up with a new way of having a conversation around information ethics and still use data, or data, unfortunately I am American, data to innovate. And so today I'm going to try to take you through a conversation around what the world is like for us today and what that really means for each of us. And it really is an exciting time. We live in interesting times. We have a time of what I will say societal and social change that is happening right in this room at this very minute. So let me start first by saying that information has been around since the beginning of time and has data. And if you think about it, caveman drawings are actually a form of data. They helped inform all of us about how they lived during that time, right? Hunters, gatherers. Those drawings are a form of data, as is this map. This map is a map of my hometown in New York. It's a little town called Pelham Manor. It's one of the oldest villages outside of New York City, and one of the first villages in Westchester County, the county that I live in. And this map dates back to 1914. But it's still in use in my town. So what's it used for? Well, it's to identify where your property is located, the size of your lot, the amount of taxes that I get to privilege to pay, as well as potentially if I want to add on in my house an addition, a pool, it will tell the town supervisor whether or not my lot is big enough to afford that type of structure and perhaps give me some limitations. This information is available, it's still used. You can take this book out, you can log it out, you can bring it to your lawyer's office, and it is data about my town. Now, of course, if most of you want to know where I live, you're going to use a different way of getting at that very same data. You're not likely to fly to the United States. You're not likely to go into my village assessor's office, which is teeny, teeny, tiny, right? You're going to Google me and Google my village on Google Maps or some other functionality, correct? Right? And so the difference, though, isn't in the data that is represented on the map. What's different, though, is the amount of information that is being collected and how it's being used and the actual amount, right? So my little assessment office will have you log out the book. When you use it this way, what is really of interest is not why you're on this page, right? So where did you come from? Which website were you on? Are you planning a trip? Did you check out an airline ticket? Did you ping me on LinkedIn because you have a relationship with me? Or is it because you're interested in buying property in this town? And so the data universe that has always existed for all of us, from cave drawings to simple maps, has exploded into the big data universe that all of us are connected to and all of us are wired into. And we want to be, right? I'm going to flip through a couple of slides. We all do this every day now, right? We shop online, we're connected online, we bank online, and we don't even do it tethered to a desk or a computer terminal anymore. Now, here's a trivia question. How many of you, upon seeing this slide, have an insane urge to check your mobile? We are connected. Our society is connected, and it's connected through data. That is the currency of innovation for the next generation. And we know, when we look at our phones, we want to know what is going on and who we are connected to, what information, right? Ultimately, we are a global, connected society, right? You want to check your phone because you want to know, have you received a text? Have you received an email? Have you missed a call? What's on your agenda or your calendar for the next day? Or do you want to tweet out a message to those who follow you? This is the constant interaction of the individual with data, and it occurs over and over and over again. Now, the price of this, though, is different than going to look at a caveman drawing on a wall or a map in an assessor's office, because there's a quid pro quo for this kind of connectedness. And we call it data breadcrumbs. We call it data footprint. We call it data exhaust. And it is all the little pieces of you that you leave around the internet and in our connected world. It's your cell phone data. It's your search history data. It's your email exchanges. It's your financial data. How many of you are wearing a Nike band or a Fitbit? It's your health data. And all of this information is incredibly powerful and has really created a whole new way for our societies to live. But it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because here's the problem. It's fine when you want to be tracked, but what do you do if you don't? How do you stop the conclusions, the judgments that are being formed based on your data breadcrumbs? Are you okay with it? And maybe you are in a one-to-one relationship with the enterprise with whom you think you're interacting, but data spreads and data moves quickly and it's shared among enterprises. So it may be fine with you to give your tracking of your pedometer to Fitbit so that it can track your steps. But what if that has other ramifications that you weren't aware of when you entered into, and let's be clear, it is this, the relationship that you have with that enterprise. So, much of the data, though, that is collected is put to fantastic use, right? It's personalized offers is the easy commercial use, customer service. In the United States, we've had horrible, horrible tornadoes, and we've had weather warnings that have been connected to your device that have actually saved lives to enable people to seek shelter. So data is a fantastic thing when used in ways that actually enable society to move faster, to be more informed, and to make safer and better decisions. We use it at MasterCard for fraud prevention. We're trying to use it more and more for financial inclusion, for companies, for enterprises and people who are only connected to the grid via their mobile. How in the world do we help them with their financial needs? We've all heard the information about flu outbreaks, right, and the use of Google searches. The exposure of injustice. We've seen the Arab Spring, all because of our connectivity and the data behind it. And from this, our wired-driven, data-driven world continues to make change happen, and that change is predicted to grow even faster. So the buzzword last year was big data. The buzzword this year is the Internet of Things, or the buzz phrase, right? So take a look at this slide, and you'll begin to see things that are in existence today, okay? So let's be clear. Most of the things on this slide are in existence today. The Internet of Things is understood to refer to the growing network of devices that capture, share, and use data. And it is predicted that by 2015, over 25 billion devices will be connected to the Internet. And that by 2020, that number will more than double to over 50 billion. That's a lot of information. All there for innovation, all there for use, but how can we live in an age of constant connectivity, constant data collection and monitoring, while still honoring the right of the individual to have some level of privacy and control over their information? It's an ethical challenge. It's a societal challenge. It's not just a legal challenge. It's not just a tick-the-box compliance exercise that's going to really answer these questions. So as a privacy professional, I get this cartoon all the time because they say to me, but JoAnn, privacy? Why does privacy matter if you've done nothing wrong? So if you live a good, clean life, why do you have to worry about privacy? Privacy is really a concern for imposters or fakers or people who'd like to have multiple identities. And of course, I say, I disagree, okay? because it's not just about not wanting to be monitored. For me, it goes further about not wanting my actions and data to be judged in a certain way without me being part of that conversation. I hate to be managed. And the world we're living in can manage me. It can manage my content, it can manage my searches, and it all can be done with a harbinger of good for me, right? So Google is going to tailor my searches based on my previous searches, but I hate being managed. And my family knows this, and my staff at MasterCard knows this, because when you're managed, it's harder to create. It's harder to innovate if you're only seeing a consistent, repetitive slice of the world in which you live. Some of you who have checked out my profile know that I teach at Pratt Institute in their design management program. And I tell my design students that they can see things that other people can't see. That's the blessing, that's the talent of being a designer. They create things from flat things and make magnificent creations. But how easy and how expansive can that be in a managed content world? That's really one of the questions society needs to begin to answer. Because we love the convenience. And when you want to be managed and you understand you're being managed, maybe that's okay. But what if you didn't want to be managed in that way? And more importantly, what happens if they've got it wrong? What's your recourse? You may like how you've been classified, you may like how you've been managed, or perhaps you're in the wrong category. And so it's beyond a privacy notice, it's beyond a check the box. It's really about how do responsible organizations like AMP, like my company, and us as individuals who play and create this data society we live in, how do we begin to change our behaviors to start a different dialogue? We're at the dawn of this era. It's just beginning. And so how managed do you want to be, or do you want to switch it to a different conversation? So many of you may say to me, well, JoAnn, I don't feel managed. I'm not managed. And I will say, that's what you believe. But I'm here to tell you that you are possibly more managed than you realize. So how is it done? We have in our society, and this is not just technology companies, right? I showed you the Internet of Things. Every enterprise is becoming a data-driven enterprise. It is the secondary asset. It is the secondary product that everybody is looking at to improve their core product or processes. And so many, many different companies and enterprises, and this is true governments, non-for-profits, all sorts of organizations, are using information in the great data universe. And what they do is this. They really are not super interested in just you. What they're interested in is understanding correlations and patterns of behavior, and then figuring out how many of us behave in a like-minded way. So how many of us have similar routines, belong to similar herds? And what I'm trying to represent on this slide is the different colors that you're getting colored into as these populations are defined. Because once they're defined by all of our data, and it may be anonymous data, once those populations are defined, the next step is to try to find those people in real life. And that's when you're being managed. That's when, if they think you look a certain way or you are going to behave a certain way, then therefore you should be given a certain view of an offer, a lifestyle, product constructs, okay? And so it's fine if you like the judgment, but if you don't, what do you do? So let's take this to kind of the next level. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit into the Internet of Things, which is only a little bit, right? We're building smart houses now, and they're a delightful idea, right? How many of you have left your home and thought, did I turn off the coffee pot? Did I close the garage door? And how lovely would it be to not have to turn back around to go home and check that, right? Instead, you could go to your computer here at the office and look at the different devices that are listed for your home on your home's smart website. And you say, oh, I can close the garage door. I did leave it open. All great. But let's take the stove and the microwave, and let's fast forward a little bit and say that both of these devices are hooked up to your smart grid in your home. And the judgment that is made is that the actual data is that you use your microwave 5 times more often than you use your traditional stove or oven. And that other data has shown that people who use their microwave more often than their oven or stove are less healthy eaters. Okay? Now, that may be a judgment that then could affect you and your family, and potentially, fast forwarding way into the future, but maybe not that far, your health premiums, because you don't have healthy habits. Now, this will really make you crazy if you are a mom who actually, 2 days of the week, what do? You cook like a maniac on your stove or oven. You freeze your meals so you can have good, healthy, nutritious, potentially organic, vegetarian food for your family. But that does require that your family then has the convenience of using the microwave those other 5 days a week. And yet, you may be cast into the category of being less healthy. Again, this is the problem. And how do you get into that conversation? How do you get into that conversation before your health care premium rises and you don't know why? And this is the conversation. This is about privacy. This is about being managed in a world where data is king. And data is a fantastic, innovative source, but we've got to change the paradigm. This is Dr. Alan Weston. He was an early privacy pioneer. And this is a quote about what really privacy is. So I'm not giving you a legal definition. I'm giving you kind of a societal definition. So each individual is continually engaged in a personal adjustment process where he balances the desire with privacy with the desire for disclosure and communication. And isn't that really what we're talking about and what I'm talking about? It's this balance. How do I balance being connected? Anybody want to check their cell phone again? Right? I showed you mine. We become like Pavlovian dogs. And as hardwired as we are to getting information and having information, you want to check your favorite app, you want to check your horoscope today, you want to play a game with your friends, Words with Friends, right? We've also, though, not really begun to think about how we manage this two-way communication of data. We need new sets of practices. We need new sets of standards. We need, as companies, to engage differently with our customers to find out what they want and to create means of communication and data sharing that allow for the adjustment and the judgments. We don't have those yet. We're on the cusp of building those. Many, many companies are just waking up, and I'm talking beyond technology companies, are waking up to the fact that they've got to begin to change this paradigm in order to compete in this information age. And as individuals, we need to be asking questions of the organizations that collect our information. We need to understand not only what they're going to do with it, but how are they going to transform it, how are they going to share it, and what are the ultimate judgments that may come from it, so that we can begin to have access to correction and changing it. Now, many people will say, JoAnn, this is where law and regulation comes in. And I agree, law and regulation has a place in this. But as a lawyer, one of the first things you're taught in law school in the US is that the law lags society. Laws get created based on societal behavior. And so our lawmakers are struggling to keep up with all of us, okay? And if you have conversations with any of your lawmakers here, you have a new privacy code that's going to be enacted, there's a new one in Europe, a new conversation happening in Canada, it's because the commissioners and the regulators are trying to catch up to this data-wired world and recognizing that some of the requirements just don't match what we're actually doing as a society. And the other problem is that privacy is a notoriously culturally biased thing. What we think of privacy really truly depends on the type of society that you're part of, whether you have freedom of information, whether you need that freedom of information protected by your government. So whose laws should govern? And I'm here to tell you in my job, my global job, as Scott said, it's all the laws are different. There is no harmonization. There is no one standard. So what happens is multinational corporations have to try to harmonize this into frameworks or zone or code different locations, trying to understand how they can interact with people differently. And I'm not sure that that's ultimately a sustainable methodology. And the real power here is that what you can do, though, is go beyond the law. That's really what an accountable organization will do. And an organization that wants to engage with its customers, wants to be about customer service, wants to be about customer experience, will actually understand these laws and incorporate them into how they do strategy. So let me give you some ideas on how organizations can begin to think about this and how I think we have to change. This is a slide that reflects, to a certain extent, something known as privacy by design. It's a phrase coined by a Canadian privacy commissioner. And what it really means is that you ensure privacy is part of the product design process. And as a little designer, I really appreciate this. And as a business person, I appreciate it even more. Because one of the things I tell my business colleagues at work is, if you involve me and my team early and often, we will come up with solutions for you that help us be compliant and future-oriented and customer-oriented in ways that you aren't going to think of originally. So we're part of the product design team. And when you design products that use information, you have to look at different aspects of that information. The collection, how are you analyzing it? What's the output? What's the application? And what are the rules of the road that you need to create? Never mind, you've got to ensure security, which is a whole other conversation we can have in our very wired world. Companies also need information governance and information strategy. The creation of a decision-making process inside of enterprises and organizations that aligns business decisions, business opportunities with information use, information policy, and information infrastructure. They have to get aligned with business strategy. So many of us do business plans. I would argue companies need data plans that match along with it. Because many of the opportunities you're going to identify in your business strategy are based on information. And it may require that you organize that data differently. It may require that you have different processes to obtain information, collect information. It may mean that you have to build a different way of communicating with your customers. And you may want to build different tools. And all of that then has implications to your business strategy. The last piece here is really about information management, and that I do believe we're on a journey. And that companies for many, many years wanted to be compliant, and I would argue that compliance is just the baseline to this conversation. That the real goal is for strategic insights. That's the power of big data. So it's a new world order. We have to move on this trajectory, right? Align our thinking with our business strategy, understand how data plays part of that, create a new paradigm for conversation with our customers and employees, be accountable, and let's, as individuals, make conscious choices. We need to begin to change the conversation. We need a different way of communicating beyond data collection and use on a massive scale that doesn't allow the individual to interject. It won't be perfect, but we need to start. We need to start changing the conversation. We need to start changing the paradigm and ensure that the data innovation of the future offers individuals the right protections while enabling innovation to continue. Thank you.